Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome to another video. This is going to be a contest entry for Hanna, the Omaha Introvert. And hello Hanna. Great passion and knowledge coming through on Hanna's channel. I'd say pretty much every time I watch one of her Vinyl Finds videos I learn something new. I find out about a band or an artist that I'd never heard of before. A good example would be the Waitresses, who she introduced me to, but there's all kinds of power pop bands and culture there that Hanna knows a lot about, so I'm always dropping a comment saying never heard of this bunch, never heard of that bunch, we'll be looking out for their records, so absolutely brilliant. Okay, so Hanna's contest, I think it's her 1000th subscriber contest. Quite a straightforward one. I'm a big fan of straightforward contests. Maybe not going to get the questions in the right order, so I'll just go with them as I think of them. There was a question about show some female artists. Got some 3 here to show you, but a fair few things to whip through. The first one is kind of fairly obvious. Just going to go with Chrissie Hynde from The Pretenders. I've been listening to this album a lot recently. I bought it a while back. This is their album, well, her album, Alone, from 2006, and it's produced by the guy from the Black Keys, whose name escapes me. It's got that kind of Black Keys sound to it, quite bluesy, quite rough and ready. But then it also has some really lovely Chrissie Hynde melodic songs. There's a fantastic song on this album called Never Be Together.
Promises and champagne and cigars, dizzy heights of passion's ecstasy. Loves are just some things that can't be ours and will never be. Oh no, we'll never.
The album really shows Chrissie at the height of her melodic powers and gifts, and I don't know, she's just somebody that's been in my life for years and years. I remember being, in primary school when I was 9 or 10, listening to Chrissie Hynde on the radio and The Pretenders, and here I am now at the age of 47 and she's still going. So just one of rock's great survivors, one of the most distinctive voices of her generation. I'm just glad to know that she's still out there making music, so check out that album. Also want to give a shout out to this lady, Shaun Colvin, who I was introduced to by Whispering Bob Harris on the Bob Harris late night radio show, back in the mid-90s. Love this album. This is A Few Small Repairs, which did have a vinyl re-release not so long ago. I didn't pick it up because I'm trying not to buy things on record that I have on CD already, but I was sorely tempted. So that's a great album. It contains the big hit Sunny Came Home, kind of autumnal, melancholy singer-songwriter type stuff, with really tasteful playing and musicianship. This was the previous album to that, Fat City, which contains some great tracks, some great pedal steel guitar on this record. Polaroids is the big song off this. Tenderness on the Block, which is a Warren Zevon cover. Great song. Round of Blues, gorgeous ballad, Orion in the Sky. It's quite mainstream, this record. If you don't like stuff which is edging into kind of fairly overtly emotional mainstream territory, this might not be for you, but I absolutely love this album. I had a great day once walking in the countryside with my son and his friend. We went to the Lake District and we were just kind of walking around, and there were all these lovely waterfalls and incredible scenery. And my son and his friend were just off, together. So I was sort of on my own really. I had nobody to talk to. So I just listened to the album pretty much all day. I had it on my iPod. I must have listened to it about 3 or 4 times on this big long walk. And I just, you get to that point where you feel like you've totally absorbed an album into your very bones. Well, I did that with that record. And then this is a more recent one. This is All Fall Down, which came out in, I think this was 2012, and that's a good album too. That's a bit more raw. The first track, All Fall Down, is it's quite bluesy and stompy. I'd love to see Shaun Colvin. She doesn't come to the UK really. She seems to kind of mainly tour in North America, but I would love to see her because she's a very talented lady and with a great voice and a great songwriting talent. And the final person I would like to showcase is Laura Cantrell, who I don't hear a lot about on the vinyl community. This is her album Not the Trembling Kind. I discovered her via John Peel. John Peel absolutely loved this record. He called it one of his favourite albums of all time, and he used to play tracks from it all the time on his show. So I bought it and listened to it, and it's great. She sings a combination of her own songs and some covers. There's a song on this album called Pile of Woe, which is not by her. I forget the name of the person who wrote it. Joe Flood. Great song.
Come on, baby, stop your crying. You know you shouldn't bother so. Didn't your mama ever tell you this was a pile of woe? That if you bring a sweet song on a bright afternoon and meet me at the head of a road, we'll sing it shade to shade all up and down the tune, plowing this pile of woe.
And she does a really good version of it. Her voice is very, I'm not sure what word I'm going to use, unadulterated or there's no excess emotion or frills to her voice. It's a very ordinary sounding voice. She sounds like she doesn't try and second guess herself. It's kind of what comes out is just, that's her voice. You know, there's nothing studied about it. She's just really natural at the microphone. So there's that record, which is my favourite one, and then there's also When the Roses Bloom Again is another good one from her, and then this one, Humming by the Flowered Vine, is really nice too. I could be wrong, but the impression I get is that Laura Cantrell is maybe no longer, or maybe was never, a fully professional singer-songwriter, as in maybe she has, you know, she does other things, she has her fingers in other pies, some kind of day job. Not entirely sure, but that's becoming more common nowadays, I think, as people find it more difficult to become big stars or even to make a really good living at music. They have to do other things, and I think for that reason perhaps her output hasn't been that prodigious over the years. But all the three I've shown, that's the one that I think people would really, you know, definitely like. Not the Trembling Kind by Laura Cantrell. Question 2, Hannah wanted us to show some sub-genres of music, which I thought was an interesting topic. It got me thinking. So I'm going to go with Dr. John. I suppose we would call this, I don't know, New Orleans rhythm and blues, I suppose. I could have shown Gree, which is more your kind of swamp voodoo psych. But overall, I think Dr. John mainly specialised in New Orleans R&B and funk, which had a very specific kind of feel to it and a very specific kind of groove to it. Dr. John always claimed that the rhythms of New Orleans funk, as laid down by certain drummers and bass players on the scene, later went on to be lifted. A lot of the kind of R&B records coming out of labels such as Atlantic or even Stax in the 60s owed a lot to the kind of grooves that were being laid down in New Orleans in the kind of late 50s and early 60s. Just a great kind of genre of funk, really. It's kind of all based on the rhythms of the street marches, you know, the Mardi Gras kind of carnivalesque thing, the second line rhythms, just great funky good time music. So that's Dr. John. Wanted to give a quick shout out for jazz rock, which in lesser hands than Steely Dan can be rather nasty, but Steely Dan always managed to do it absolutely brilliantly. So this is their album Pretzel Logic, and of course they pioneered a very particular kind of very swish and polished rock music that had influences, I'd say mainly from Blue Note jazz and also Duke Ellington as well, and Henry Mancini, the kind of lounge side of popular soft jazz. Wonderful stuff. And the final one I want to do is just a little bit of orchestral rock, as pioneered by the Moody Blues. They were never really a prog band as such, but they definitely pioneered orchestral rock music. Them and the Beatles, I suppose, but the Moody Blues took it to new heights on their debut album, Days of Future Past. And at some point in the down the line, I'll do a video on orchestral rock, because I find it quite an interesting genre, really. You know, some people hate it, some people think it's pretentious and just a load of hot air, but I've always had a sneaking fondness for it. Okay, and the final question Hannah wants us to answer is just to do with our with some favourite piece of equipment. I'm not a big equipment head. techie head. I always forget the names of the CD players and the record players I've had over the years. So I'm going to go with my current record deck, which was given to me by my dad years ago. He's a hi-fi buff, and I used to get his cast-offs all the time. This was not the last record player he ever had. He had another one after this, which was incredible, and unfortunately he did not give that to me. He sold it because he got rid of his vinyl. But this one is a Thorens. I'll show it to you, and yeah, I will not say anything about it other than it's my record deck, and I love it dearly. Okay, hope you enjoyed the video, and Hannah, well done on the 1,000 subs, onwards and upwards. Okay folks, have a great day. I'll see you all soon. Here's the Thorens.